Kostas Georgakis was a Greek student of geology who, in the early hours of the 19th of September 1970, set himself ablaze in Matteotti Square in Genoa as a protest against the dictatorial regime of Georgios Papadopoulos. Early life. Georgakis grew up in Corfu in a family of 5. His father was a self-employed tailor of modest means. Both his father and grandfather distinguished themselves in the major wars that Greece fought in the 20th century. He attended the Second Lyceum in Corfu where he excelled in his studies. In August 1967, a few months after the 21st of April coup in Greece, Georgakis went to Italy to study as an engineer in Genoa. He received 5,000 drachmas per month from his father, and this, according to friends' testimony, made him feel guilty for the financial burden his family endured so that he could attend a university. In Italy he met Rosanna, an Italian girl of the same age, and they got engaged. In 1968 Georgakis became a member of the Centre Union Party of Georgios Papadopoulos. The events. On the 26th of July 1970, Georgakis gave an interview to a Genovese magazine anonymously, during which he revealed that the military junta's intelligence service had infiltrated the Greek student movement in Italy. In the interview he denounced the junta and its policies and stated that the intelligence service created the National League of Greek Students in Italy and established offices in major university cities. A copy of the recording of the interview was obtained by the Greek consulate and the identity of Georgakis was established. Soon after, he was attacked by members of the junta student movement. While in the third year of his studies and having passed the exams of the second semester, Georgakis found himself in the difficult position of having his military exemption rescinded by the junta as well as his monthly stipend that he received from his family. The junta retaliated for his involvement in the anti-junta resistance movement in Italy as a member of the Italian branch of PAC. His family in Corfu also sent him a letter describing the pressure that the regime was applying to them. Fearing for his family in Greece, he decided that he had to make an act to raise awareness in the West about the political predicament of Greece. Once he made the decision to sacrifice his life, Kostas Georgakis filled a canister with gasoline, wrote a letter to his father and gave his fiancée Rosanna his windbreaker, telling her to keep it because he wouldn't need it any longer. Then by 1:00 a.m. on the 19th of September 1970 he drove his Fiat 500 to Matteotti Square. According to eyewitness accounts by street cleaners who were working around the Palazzo Ducale, there was a sudden bright flash of light in the area. At around 3:00 a.m. At first they did not realize that the flame was a burning man. Only when they approached closer they saw Georgakis burning and running while ablaze, shouting, "Long live Greece! Down with the tyrants! Down with the fascist colonels! And I did it for my Greece." The street cleaners added that at first Georgakis refused the help and ran away from them when they tried to extinguish the fire. They also said that the smell of burning flesh was something they would never forget and that Georgakis was one in a million. According to an account by his father who went to Italy after the events, Georgakis's body was completely carbonized from the waist down up to a depth of at least 3 centimeters in his flesh. Georgakis died 9 hours after the events in the square at around 12 noon the same day. His last words were, "Long live free Greece." Reaction of the junta. The Greek newspaper Tevima in the January 2009 article "The Return of Kostas Georgakis" with the subtitle "Even the Remains of the Student Who sacrificed himself for democracy, caused panic to the dictatorship by Fatini Tomai, supervisor of the historical and diplomatic archives of the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The article reports that throughout the crisis in Italy, the Greek consulate sent confidential reports to the junta where it raised fears that the death of Georgakis would be compared to the death of Jan Palić and could adversely affect Greek tourism, while at the same time it raised concerns that Georgakis' grave would be used for anti-junta propaganda and anti-nation pilgrimage and political exploitation. Through diplomatic letter dated the 25th of August 1972, Greek consular authorities in Italy reported to the junta in Athens that an upcoming Italian film about Georgakis would seriously damage the junta, and it was proposed that the junta take measures through silent third-party intervention to obtain the worldwide distribution rights of the film so that it would not fall into the hands of German, Scandinavian, American stations and the BBC, which were reported as interested in obtaining it. The film was scheduled to appear at the Primo Italiano Festival in Torino, at the Festival of Pesaro and the Venice Anti-Festival under the title Galani Horror. Gianni Ciro was the director, and the film was a co-production by Rai and CTC at a total cost of 80 million Italian lire. The dictatorship was also afraid that the film would create the same anti-junta sentiment as the films led by Kostas Georgakis. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of the junta's Anthopoulos Palamas, in the secret encrypted message Alpha Pi Gamma Tau Lambda 400 to 183 of the 26th of November 1970, suggests to the Greek consular authorities in Italy to take precautions so that during the loading of the remains on the ship, to avoid any noise and publicity. It was clear that the junta did not want a repeat of the publicity that occurred during Georgakis' funeral procession on the 22nd of September 1970 in Italy. On the 22nd of September 1970, Melina Mercouri led a demonstration of hundreds of flag and banner-waving Italian and Greek anti-junta resistance members. During the funeral procession of Georgakis in Italy, Mercouri was holding a bouquet of flowers for the dead hero. According to press reports, Greek Secret Service agents were sent from Greece for the occasion. In another diplomatic letter, it is mentioned that Stathis Panagoulis, brother of Alexandros Panagoulis, was scheduled to give the funeral address but did not attend. According to diplomatic message Alpha Pi 432 to the 23rd of September 1970 from the Greek embassy in Rome, then Ambassador A. Poumpouras was transmitting to the junta that hundreds of workers and anti-junta resistance members accompanied the dead body from the hospital to the mausoleum in Genoa, where he was temporarily interred. In the afternoon of the same day, a demonstration of about 1,000 was held, which was organized by leftist parties shouting anti-Hellenic and anti-American slogans, according to the ambassador. In the press conference which followed the demonstrations, Melina Mercouri was scheduled to talk, but instead Ioannis Laloudas from Paris and Chistis Stremenos attended, the latter bearing a message from Andreas Papandreou. According to the ambassador's message, Italian police took security precautions around the Greek consulate at the time, at the request of the Greek embassy in Rome. Another consular letter by Consul N. Fotilas mentioned that on the 13th of January 1971 the remains of Georgakis were transferred to the ship Astipoli, owned by Vernikos Eugenides under the Greek flag. The ship was scheduled to leave for Piraeus on the 17th of January, carrying the remains of Georgakis to Greece. With this, a series of obstacles, mishaps, adventures and misadventures involving the return of the remains came to an end. On the 18th of January 1971, a secret operation was undertaken by the junta, and his remains were finally buried in the municipal cemetery of Corfu City. A single single police cruiser accompanied the Georgakis family, which transported to the cemetery by taxi. Letter to his father. Georgakis wrote a final letter to his father, newspaper publisher and owner of Kathamerini. Helen Flachos, in one of her books, mentions this letter as well. My dear father, forgive me for this act, without crying. Your son is not a hero. He is a human, like all the others, maybe a little more fearful. Kiss our land for me. After 3 years of violence I cannot suffer any longer. I don't want you to put yourselves in any danger because of my own actions. But I cannot do otherwise but think and act as a free individual. I write to you in Italian so that I can raise the interest of everyone for our problem. Long live democracy. Down with the tyrants. Our land which gave birth to freedom will annihilate tyranny. If you are able to forgive me. Your Kostas. Letter to a friend. In a letter to a friend, Georgakis mentions, I am sure that sooner or later the people of Europe will understand that a fascist regime like the one based on Greek tanks is not only an insult to their dignity as free men but also a constant threat to Europe. I do not want my action to be considered heroic, as it is nothing more than a situation of no choice. On the other hand, maybe some people will awaken to see what times we live in. Recognition. The municipality of Corfu has dedicated a memorial in his honor near his home in Corfu city. His sacrifice was later recognized and honored by the new democratic Hellenic government after Metropolitefsi. In his monument a plaque is inscribed with his words in Greek. The monument was created gratis by sculptor Dimitris Koros. Poet Nikiforos Vratikos in his poem I Thea to Cosmo wrote for Georgakis. You were the bright summary of our drama in one and the same torch, the light of the resurrection in our mourning by the gravestone. Poet Yanis Katsohiras in his poem Kostas Georgakis, self-immolating in the square of Genoa, wrote, living cross burning and a cry urbi aorbi transcending this world, freedom to Greece. On the 18th of September 2000, in a special all-night event at Matteotti Square, Genoa honored the memory of Georgakis. In Matteotti Square where he died, a plaque stands with the inscription in Italian, La Grecia libera lo ricordera per sempre. The complete inscription on the plaque reads, Al Giovanni Greco Constantino Georgakis Chair Sacrificato I Suoi 22 anni per la libertà e la democrazia dell'SUOPs. Tutti gli uomini liberi rabbrividiscono davanti al suo eroico gesto. La Grecia libera lo ricordera per sempre, which translates in English, to the young Greek Constantino Georgakis, who sacrificed his 22 years for the freedom and democracy of his country. All free men shudder before his heroic gesture. Free Greece will remember him forever. Legacy. I cannot but think and act as a free individual. Georgakis is the only known junta opponent to have committed suicide in protest against the junta, and he is considered the precursor of the later student protests, such as the Polytechnic uprising. At the time his death caused a sensation in Greece and abroad, as it was the first tangible manifestation of the depth of resistance against the junta. The junta delayed the arrival of his remains to Corfu for 4 months, citing security reasons and fearing demonstrations while presenting bureaucratic obstacles through the Greek consulate and the junta government. Kostas Georgakis is cited as an example indicating the strong relation between an individual's identity and his her reasons to continue living. Georgakis' words were cited as an indication that his strong identification as a free individual gave him the reason to end his life. Film. Once Upon a Time There Were Heroes. Direction Andreas Apostolidis. Screenplay Stelios Koloilou. Cinematography Vangelis Kolinos. Created by Stelios Koloilou. Production Lexicon and AMP Partners. Betacam Color 58 minutes. Reportage Without Frontiers. Documentary title The Georgakis Case. Director Kostas Georgakis. Row ASE 0. Film by Gianni Sera. Books. C. Paputsis Il Grande C. Il Caso Kostas Georgakis. Genova. Erga Redazione. 2000.